and bracha.
Hi, Lev. Everything good?
Yeah, great.
Everything on schedule, I mean? That's what I meant.
It's exactly 8 o'clock. I think for my father, I should just start talking now.
Where's Rabbi Cantor when you need him? He used to start Pinklach. He didn't wait for anybody.
Do you want to mute yourself?
How soon? I'll put on mute in a minute. Shia.
He can't hear you.
Oh, Shia doesn't hear me. Okay.
And we
So I
can't
don't
hear
No,
you.
he hears, but he's on mute.
Oh, he's-
Hello, Barry. I'm thinking about you for the last month.
Yeah, me too. I've been thinking too much. I can't think anymore. Ay, what can I tell you? I should close my phone.
Yeah, quiet.
Yossi, how are you? It's Yossi Simon.
Wait, I'm going to. Barry.
Levi,
Yeah,
you hear me?
I hear you. I can't see you, but I hear somebody.
You don't see me?
Oh, there we go. Now I see you.
Alle geheim kan me schon machen, right?
It's a must.
Buri gaat to adi no laim me goedem shahakel ni buray.
Amen. L'chaim David.
It's on Crown Royal, right?
I hope so.
Unfortunately, that's something I'm not going to try to duplicate.
Okay, Levi, are you ready to start?
4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 3, 4. These two are 4.
Levi, are you ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. First of all, thank you everybody for taking the time and coming out for yet another Zoom meeting. A number of people were gracious enough to agree to speak here tonight. I'm not going to be speaking too much, I hope. My thoughts are really still not clear. Although my father left a lot of material to talk about, there's certainly a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of things as the family that we can learn from him to take on in the future, but my thoughts are really, really not clear in that way. So what I'm gonna do is I'll make a siyum now on Mishnayos that I was in the middle of learning on Demai. I'll finish that and then I'll introduce the speakers and I'll let them give the words of wisdom. So I'm finishing now Demai, which is a Mishnayos that talks about tithing, giving meiser from produce, agricultural products that are grown in Eretz Yisrael. During the times of the second Beis Hamikdash, it became apparent that there were a lot of people, the common folk at that time referred to in the Mishnah as the Amei Haaretz. Not the way a lot of you are called the Am Haaretz, had a different connotation in those days. And those people, it was a question of whether they were tithing properly. And the Kohen Gadol at that time, this is in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Gadol at that time established Demai, which explains how to give meiser from those products. And the last Mishnah in Demai says, it's actually going to discuss 5 different cases in relation to wine. Somebody that has a lot of wine barrels, and he separates some of it for meiser, but the fellow forgot which ones he designated as the meiser. So the Mishnah is going to lay out 5 cases. So the first one is Misha Hoyulo Yeser Shurish Eser Eser Kadeyayin. If someone has 10 rows of 10 barrels of wine, in other words, he has 100 barrels. And he says that in the outer row, he designates 1 barrel as Meiser Rishon. And he doesn't know which one it was. He forgot. The Mishnah says that he should take 2 corner barrels that are diagonally across from each other, and he should take the wine out of them, pour them into 1 larger barrel, and designate that as Meiser Rishon. The second case, if a guy has Chatzi Shurach Chitzona Achas Meiser, he says in a half of an outer row of these 100 barrels, he designates one barrel as Meiser Rishon, and he doesn't know, he forgot which one it was. He should take 4 barrels, one from each of the 4 corners. Therefore, he covers all the rows. And you should take wine from them, pour them into a larger barrel, and designate that as Meiser Rishon. The third case is Shura Achas Meiser. If the guy says, if one row of these 100 barrels, he designates one barrel as Meiser, but he does not know which row it was. He should take one diagonal row of barrels, and again, he should take the wine from those different barrels, put them into a larger barrel, and designate that as Meiser Rishon. The fourth case is Chatzi Shura Achas Meiser. If the guy says, I have 1/2 row of the 100 barrels, he designates one barrel as Meiser. And again, he forgot which one it was. He should take two diagonal rows of barrels. And again, he should pour those into a larger container, and that becomes, he designates that Meiser Rishon, and that covers all the 100 barrels, and he's able to use those. And the fifth and last case is Chavis Achas Meiser. If a person says, instead of designating a specific one, he says, in one of these barrels, I designated Meiser, but he forgot which of the 100 barrels it was. He should take the amount needed from each of the individual 100 barrels, pour those all into a large container, and designate that as Trumas Meiser. And that is the last Mishnah at the end of Demai. Without further ado, I will introduce to you my dear uncle, Uncle Shia, the chairman of the National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education, to say a few words.
Beloved family, Rachel, my nieces, my nephews, extended family, and friends. The shock is still with us and quite strong. Gershon has been a part of our lives, of course, each one on a different level. No one can compare to the children, to the wife, to those of the family at Yidei Chesed, but we all have benefited from him in one way or another, his advice, or just showing up to a simcha. A student of mine called me a few days after Gershon's passing, Gershon and Avram, and said to me, you know, Rabbi Shia, I want to give you condolences for your brother. You know, I didn't know your brother. Perhaps you can tell me, like in a short period, who was your brother? What was your brother? I said, I'll tell it to you in 2 words. Gershon was a beautiful person. Now, anyone who knows Gershon, that was not exactly the terminology you would use to explain who Gershon was. But I think it is very, very appropriate. There's a maima of the Frierdiker Rebbe in the Kuntresim for Pesach, for Shvi Shel Pesach. And the Frierdiker Rebbe begins by explaining that Chesed on its own doesn't stand. It's not good enough. Chesed on its own is not good. Gevura on its own is not good. Only when you can blend Chesed and Gevura together, then you have Tiferes, then you have beauty. So Gershon was a beautiful person. He had Chesed and he had Gevura, and he blended them in a most magnificent way. It's interesting, by the way, that today was Chesed Sheba Chesed that we're getting together tonight. So I think it really brings up that it's beautiful. Now, growing up with a brother, any of us who have siblings, we know that siblings we fight with. And good siblings, we fight with even more. That's what it's all about. Particularly brothers, that's what they do, they fight. So what you see, perhaps when growing up, I saw more of Gershon's Gevura. I saw his strength, sometimes literally saw his strength and felt his strength. And then when we got a little older, we worked together on deprogramming, getting young Jewish children out of cults. We had many, many different cases. And Gershon was always brought in. He was the tough cop. He was the Gvura. He was the one who really attacked the cult and the philosophy of the cult and had the impact on the cult member. And then he dedicated his life to Chesed. First in the Yeshiva Montreal and then Beis Rivka Montreal, but then worked for Ohel Children's Home, and then Yedei Chesed, which really was his main parnasa, and of course the Yaldei Shluchei HaRebbe. When these meisters, it was pure Chesed. It was only Chesed. So here you have a person who is full of Gevura, blended with Chesed, and therefore you have a beautiful person. When you blend these two, you have true beauty, you have Tiferes. So Gershon was a person that lived Tiferes. He had Gvura and Chesed blended together. And when he gave advice to others, you saw that as well. There was Gvura and Chesed blended together. It's customary to learn Mishnayos. Mishnah is Oisius Neshama. By the way, those of you who have taken a Masechta to learn for the Shloshim, you have all day till tomorrow, Shkia time to finish your Masechta. I hope you have finished your Masechta, and I'm asking in the name of the family and in the name of Gershon himself to make sure to finish the Masechta. But I would like to focus on a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. We did so during the Shiva, and I'd like to again focus today on a Mishnah. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which we studied this past Shabbos, this Shabbos afternoon. We read about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of the Jewish people at that time. He was the Nasi. He had 5 special Talmidim. And what does he tell his Talmidim? Amar lahem, Tzu'u riyu, ezi derech toivish yidbak boy ha'adam. Go out and choose what is the best way, what is the sweetest way that people should live. What should they hold on to? What midah should they exemplify? The Talmidim came back, each one saying something else. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer, Ayin Tova, came back and said the most important thing is an Ayin Tova, a good eye, and as Mefarshim explained, not to be jealous. No jealousy. He had a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Chaver Tov. Rabbi Yeshua says a good friend is the most important thing. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shachen Tov, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon Omer Haroyes Anoiled, to look into the future, know the consequences. And finally, Rabbi Lazar Omer Leiv Tov, a good heart. I'd like to suggest, my dear friends and family, that Gershon exemplified all these 5 qualities. The first thing in Ayin Tova, he was not jealous of anyone. Jealousy was not part of his lexicon. It was not part of his behavior. The second thing, he was a Chover Tov. He had good friends, and tonight some of those friends are going to share. I wish, of course, Barry Bresler would share, because they were really more than friends. The emes a Chover Tov. And then Shachen Tov. And there's a lot of different perushim. What a Shachen Tov is, he lived in a good community and was a neighbor to others and shared his goodness. Of course, the Lubavitcher community in Monsey is Baruch Hashem, L'Shemus L'Sveres. And then the concept of Haroyas Anoiled. Those who know Gershon, whoever got advice from Gershon, he always said, you got to think about the future, you got to plan for the future. Succession. Moistes need succession. Institutions need succession. Movements need succession. He was always concerned about the Haroya Esanoiled, to see what's going to be in the future and plan for the future. And finally, Leiv Tov, to have a good heart. And a good heart he had. He gave so much of his heart to various different mitzvahs that he was presently involved in. Of course, Yedei Chesed, appropriate, called Yedei Chesed, the hands of Chesed, he gave his entire life to. And those of us who went to his office, and so first of all, tremendous operation, an institution that does great work, helps families and individuals, really does tremendous Chesed work. And Gershon really carried the whole thing, although he did plan for the future, and we will hear about that as well. But he truly had a leiv toiv, and I think if we can just coin it in one thing, it was for the Yaldei Hashluchei Rabbi. There he didn't get paid, he didn't ask for anything. All he wanted to do was help those families that were frustrated and had difficulties with the children, and gave of his chesed, gave of his time, gave of his money, went to meetings, attended meetings, did whatever he was able to share and to care for other people. So Gershon truly exemplified all these five. Let me end and say that we are presently in middle of some level of magefa. I don't want to be over dramatic, but that's what we're calling it. There's a play going on. I'm asking you, in the memory of Gershon ben Avram, to take at least one of these midos, and work on. Ayin toiv, chaver toiv, shachen toiv, haroyes anoyled, or as we say, the leiv toiv. To have simple Ahavas Yisrael for another Jew, to show your goodness and kindness for other people, to go out of your way when the other person does notice it, or if they don't notice it. Let us do our share. If we will do our share with Ahavas Yisrael and exemplify these five things that Gershon himself exemplified, we will be Zoicha to the coming of Mashiach very, very soon, when we were promised that those who are in the dust will be alive again, and we will be reunited in the flesh, together with Gershon, together with others from this plague and from before, and we will really, truly be reunited with our Rebbe and march to Eretz Yisrael with Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen. Levi, you want to introduce the next speaker, please?
Thank you, Shimon. My fault there. Sorry. Thank you, Uncle Shia. Lovely words. Just to touch on that, somebody told me, a few people told me that said, your father was a guy that really, really worked on himself in terms of all of the things really that you mentioned. So that's very, very fitting. I thank you for that. The next speaker lined up is somebody I really, really appreciate that he took the time out of his busy schedule to address us all. Rabbi Moshe Kotlarski, the director of International Conference of Shloshim, Vice Chairman of Americas and Chairman of Americas 302, of which Yaldei was underneath. It was a project of Americas 302. We heard a tremendous amount of things, Rabbi Kotlarski. I really appreciate you taking the time. Shimon, he's found. There we go. Rabbi Kotlarski.
Good evening. In truth, I never thought that I would have to come and speak about Gershon and say the word Olav Shalom on him. I remember Gershon, my first memories of Gershon, maybe go back a little before what I'm going to talk about, mention about. But when Rabbi Yankel and Rebbe Herzl Gesundheit, Bodl Chaim Tevin, went to Eretz Yisrael, they dropped off the Sabol boys in our house. And they stayed with us for as long as Yankel and Reb Chaim and Rebbetzin were away. And that was when I met Gershon and established a long, lifelong friendship with myself, but even more so with my brother Mendel and Bodl Chaim Tevin. He was a very, very good friend of, he made a very, very close friend of Gershon. Shia spoke about Chesed, spoke about Gvura. I'll speak about an English word that I think Gershon was the most effective lobbyist that there was in the world. Yaldi, many, many things that came about by the Shloshim came about because there was a need, but not necessarily every need did we know about. Came a group of about 4 or 5 people, and I'll say something, that this is Lidatus. You give birth to someone, he's your child forever. Whichever way you look at it, he remains your child. I would safely say that Gershon was in my office 15 times. Like Rabbi said, there was nothing in it for him. Literally nothing in it for him, except the gratification of the care and concern that he had, and that really resonated in his internal being. And I remember the first meeting before the staff was brought in, we had a meeting with 5 parents of special needs children of Yalde, which turned into, and Gershon was there. And Gershon was the driving force behind it. And he's the one that really cared for it. I mean, now there's Baruch Hashem, there's a staff, there's Rabbi Weizen, there's Rabbi Shor, and many other people that are involved. But at that period of time, I mean, there's a board of directors. At that period of time, Gershon was the one that saw the need, established the need, and brought it to fruition. So I want to say something about Gershon that, again, Rabbi started with a Mishnah, so I'll also use a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. There's a story, one story that's told in all the Pirkei Avos. Rabbi Yisrael Kisser relates that I was once going along the way, and I met a person. It was an Adam, he was a mensch. He gave me shalom politely, exactly shalom. I gave him back shalom. He asked me, Rabbi, where are you from? So I said, I'm from a biggest city of Chachamim and Sefer. So I said to him, Rabbi, and I'll pay you $1,000 dinners of abundant tables malgar. Come and live with us in our place. And I'll pay you $1 million gold and silver in this. Martin Rabbi Yisrael ben Kisma says, Martin nicely called Kesed, the Zav, abundant tables malgar, Shabiyim, any Daryl and them came. I'm only going to live in a place of Torah. So the question is this: Rabbi Yisrael ben Kisma says he was an Adam, he was a mensch. Rabbi Yisrael ben Kisma says he gave him shalom. He asked him, where are you from? And he gave him an offer of $1 million. Could you imagine $1 million 2,000 years ago in the times of the Hanoim? A world of money. It's like somebody wakes up in the year 2030 and after sleeping for 40 years and he has one coin to make the telephone call. And he calls the stockbroker and he says, how's my AT&T stock? It's $5 million. How is this? It's $10 million. So he says, I'm rich. He says, then he has a sound, please deposit $5 million. Or please deposit $5 million for the next 5 minutes, or your call will be disconnected. $1 million then was a world. You don't like it, don't negotiate with him. How does he come and he tell me, he says, give you all the money in the world, I'm not going to live in your place. It's chopping when I talk. So, I'm sorry if it's choppy. So, anyway, so he offers him $1 million. He says, you don't like it, negotiate with the man. Tell him I want this, I want this. You give him such a varifuk. What did Rabbi Yisrael ben Kisma tell him? There was one key word over here. And he said, I'm ready to pay you to live with us in our place. We have a mitzvah to learn Torah, to do mitzvahs. We'll hire you, we'll give you $1 million, and you do it in our place. And we'll live the life that we want to live. Gershon didn't look for $1 million. It was the farthest thing from his mind. And he didn't look for him. Okay, I started something. Now I have people there. You go and do it. He remained an integral part of the Mossad and of the heart of so many of the families that were involved. that turn to him for the listening ear and turn to for a piece of his heart. So Gershon was also, I am sure that even in the Shiva, that you're already by the Rebbe, is Betzachis for thy Mishpacha, Betzachis for Klal Yisrael, and because of Mamash we should, because you're maybe not with us physically, but in the things that you did, you will always be an integral part of us. So, to be Gershon, I'll miss you as a friend, I'll miss you as someone that could be relied on to do so many different things. And Klal Yisrael will miss you because Chesed Shebechesed, even though Rabbi called it Tiferes, but Chesed Shebechesed is the first night. It's the first one of the Midas. And as much as someone knew you as Chesed Shebechesed, I might talk about Chesed Shebechesed. I knew you as Chesed Shebechesed, and you'll always remain Chesed Shebechesed. Today is a Baruch via Mainlitz Yusha for the family and for everybody, because I don't think they have to wait 11 months, 12 months for you, because I'm sure the Shloshim Yibet by some Rebbe, the Bisham Rebbe, standing right next to Rabbi Yankel and all of Hashem, together with all the big Chassidim.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Kotlarski. We'll go back a little bit in time now to the early years back in Montreal. You'll please apologize. I apologize if I get your title wrong, but Rabbi Yosef Minkowitz, the principal of Beis Rivka Montreal, was kind enough to agree to say a few words. He worked with my father for, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I believe throughout all the years that we lived in Montreal, Rabbi Minkowitz.
Again, it's hard to speak about Gershon as a person who's not here. He's here in our lives. We worked with him, I believe, for 13 years, from Tovshim and Beis till Tovshim and Heimistam in 82 till 95. He also worked in Pardes Chane a number of years, the camp in Montreal, named after the Rebbe's mother. We knew him as a modest, pragmatic person. Everything he did was with seichel, realistically, based on practical, not theoretical considerations. It was always on time, a mesuder. And again, quoting a Mishnah, Amer ma'at v'asei harbe, I believe was his slogan. He believed, b'dafton, pola d'imomanon, we have to accomplish, and he did what had to be done. But above all, I want to add, he was a chosid and a makusha to the Rebbe. There's many cases where we saw this. He didn't go around boasting about it and talking about it, but people that followed carefully saw his chassidishkeit and his kesher to the Rebbe. He was in Beis Rivka, he had a position of administrator. So he had to do also with dealing with the banks and with paying bills. I remember when he started working the internet that we know now with all the Zooms, Avadanish, the whole internet wasn't born yet, at least the World Wide Web, the way we know it. Remember just when it came out, Tovshim Memtes, Tovshim Nun, it wasn't yet, it was just the beginning. And in those days, you couldn't, the .com didn't exist. So to get the communication from one place to another, you had to type about 6, 7, 8 lines of A, Gimel, Dalet, exclamation mark, and all these type of things. And I marveled, he picked it up right away. And I remember he came in, he said, you can talk to somebody for free in Australia. How can it be? We can't design, what says for free? Australia at that time costed $12 a minute to talk for free, and you can send this, you can send that. And that time they also had a thing called Lubinet. Maybe people that were around those days remember, and in Tovshin on Beis, when the master of the Rebbe, the health of the Rebbe, we want to know every day, every minute. It came through him. A lot of the information was through Lubinet that he gave over many things. And people found out. Adainka in the Shnasa Binyan, the end of Tovshim Ches, 1988, 89. At that time, we, Baruch Hashem, had the great schus to build a third floor on the Besrivka. It's quite a large building and a whole entire third floor. And the campus was renamed also Besrivka Campus Chaim Mushke. And he was very, very much involved in that, very much involved. And he had to deal with a lot of things at that time, and he did it with dignity, with great derech eretz, Rabbi Kramer. And thanks to that, and thanks to being a Besrivka, and he continued on afterwards, he was zeicha to be a shliach, and his in the Sefer HaShluchim. So I have over here, I just want to show everybody, not everybody has the Sefer HaShluchim, so I can just, I can show it here. Let's see, 1 second. Is that it? That's the Sefer HaShluchim. Go back a drop. Sefer HaShluchim, Atayre Mishpoche, and not only that, just give me another second, please. Bear with me. Oh, wrong place. Okay. This is a picture taken in front of Besrivka. Oh, you see him there? Oh, you got him? See? This is where he worked. Besrivka. And his stamp is still felt. You have to understand, working in a Mesid for so many years, this is the third floor that was built at that time. Working in a Mesid for so many years leaves a stamp on the Mesid, and we can count many, many accomplishments that are thanks to him, Baruch Hashem. There's a Mesid in Montreal, also called Yaldei, helping out children with special needs. It started off with 1 or 2 children, and he was very, very much involved. At that time, it was mamish a fledgling organization. It was just a few children. They had no building. They had nothing. Today, Baruch Hashem, they have a massive building, tremendous help, and he did a lot of work, helping out unofficially. Wasn't paid, as mentioned before. Yalda Shluchei Rabbi, what he's doing, Yedei Chesed, the Mansi, that he's known for accomplishing so much. But to design, I'm good to better. And I want to mention also, when we built the building, we had this chus that Rabbi Yankiv Yehuda Hecht, Rabbi Yankel Hecht, JJ Hecht, came in to be the guest speaker to make a Gvaldik speech. It was just online, I think, a few months ago. They had online all the speeches like Gvaldik. There's a Gvaldik speech, and it might be, if I remember correctly, it's like a thanks to Gershon that we had this chus that he came to the dinner and gave us a Gvaldik speech and accomplished a lot, and he left a Gvaldik impression. Well, they took a help from that the Mishpoche should have only simches, each one of you, and continued with the Kinder, mit Eineklach, and sein nur Simches, sicher sein tanzen an Kegen Mashiach and Mekorev Mamish, the kids of Rana Sheikh Neofer will be back with us together. We'll be able to celebrate many, many Simchas together.
Thank you, Rabbi Minkowitz. First of all, because it is my father's Shloshim, it would only be apropos. Everybody, L'chaim, L'chaim. The next speaker, he agreed to do it under protest. So I want to tell you, Barabim, now that I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time and the bravery. I hope you had a little bit of liquid courage before this. This is a guy who 21 years, he works with my father at least 8 to 9 hours a day, I would say. So cumulative total of that is it's quite impressive. He is now, unfortunately, it's very bittersweet because he's now unfortunately in the directorship of Yedei Chesed, assuming that position. Rabbi David Sternhill, if you could please share with us a few words.
You hear me? Thank you, Levi. First of all, I'm happy that you were moided that I did this on the protest. because I am not a speaker, but let's try. Actually, Rabbi Minkowitz, I believe that speech that you just mentioned, Rabbi Gershon used to send me always clips and videos from the guy the Rebbe and the guy Lubavitch. One of the last, and he used to send me probably 2-3 a week. One of the last ones that he sent me was a clip of Rabbi Hecht speaking at the Shloshim of the Rebbetzin, and I believe it was in Montreal. So I'm not sure if that's the speech that you're referring to. In that speech, Rabbi Hecht asked a question. We see by the Petira of Surah Maini that Vayuva Avruam Lefkoisa. There was nobody else that was maspid Surah Maini, only Avram Avini. Rabbi Hecht asks the obvious question: where was everybody else? We see in Midrashim how famous Surah Maini was. She was Avram's partner in making the Georim. He made the men, she made the women the Georis. She was a popular lady. Where were the other people? Why did nobody come to be maspid except for Avram Avinu? Rabbi Hecht answers that there was nobody that knew Avram, knew Sarah Imenu like Avram. Mila was not appropriate for anybody to come be maspid Surah because nobody really knew her except for Avram Avinu. I am not the one to be maspid Rabbi Gershon. Although I worked with him all these years, I can tell you that I was not makar everything that I hear about Rabbi Gershon. But since I did work with him all these years, I guess I'll share some thoughts. And some of these things, people will be inspired. I guess it'll be a schis for his neshama. Why is it so hard to be maspid Rabbi Gershon? Gershon had a lot of different angles to himself. To families, he was their support system. To the different organizations he was involved with, say before he came to Yidei Chesed, say during the time he was with Yidei Chesed, he was involved in a lot of different organizations. To them, he was the perfect businessman. He knew how to run a moiset, and he was able to give advice. As a boss, he was the boss and mentor you can wish for. And if I may add, as a friend, he was the one. He was someone that cared about you, Rachnius and Begashmius. Even when he disagreed with you, you could always rely on his honest opinion. Rabbi Gershon was also someone who shunned the spotlight. He hated it. Yes, when he recognized that his position required him to take control, he did it, but he did not like it. Give you an example. The Chesed runs a weekend retreat every year. It's a place where families come together for Shabbos from Thursday till Sunday afternoon. They receive chizik from different speakers for one another. And it's also naturally a time where families will come over and thank the Chesed staff for their help throughout the year. Every year without fail. It came a few weeks before the weekend retreat. Gershon called me and David, I'm not coming. I'm not coming this year. This is, what do I need? People should feel they have to come and thank me. I'm staying home. Till we convinced him that the families are going to want to speak to him. He'll be able to mechazik families. He agreed to come. And he worked hard on those weekends. He did not sit back and enjoy it. He did not sit back and just eat the food. He sat with families every hour of the day, every hour of the night. And if someone dared to come thank him, he would politely explain that it's not him to be thanked, but somebody would find some other person that has to be thanked. It was never about him. I remember one year, the weekend retreat came out, the Shabbos came out to be the Shabbos before Yud Shvat. And I knew the minig is that you should have Aliyah on Shabbos before the Yahrzeit. So I gave him an Aliyah. I didn't ask him, I gave him an Aliyah. He was furious. He came over to me afterwards. Adasan, why did you give me Aliyah? I said, what's the big deal? There are a lot of Aliyahs. I gave you one Aliyah. You deserve some. It's not about me. You could have given it to another family, some other guy that would have gotten chizik out of it. It's not about me. It was never about him. We used to come into the office. This was a Pisman that probably played over 10 times a day. Somebody walked into his office, Gershon would ask him, how are you doing? The person would answer, how he's doing. And naturally, the person would respond, and how are you doing? His answer was, it's none of your business. While at first some people were surprised by his answer, he really meant it. It was not about him. It was about the other person. How I am, doesn't matter. One of the things that have been thrown around a lot over the past few weeks is about Gershon's yashas, how straight he was. I can tell you, I worked with him hand in hand for over 20 years. I have been by his side at numerous decisions, numerous situations, for anything, dealing with families, Rabbunim, the state, whatever it should be. I can tell you, I have never met someone as ehrlich as Gershon was. His clarity of what's right and what's wrong, how to assess a situation, how to best deal with it. And as Rabbi mentioned before, for somehow he always was able to see ahead what was going to happen. The joke in the office was, we used to come into his office and we used to tell him, no, Gershon, I hate saying this, but you were right again. He just had a certain clarity to himself. He was able to see through. He was a digma chaya, one should conduct themselves. Everything he did, he would ask, is this what Hashem wants from us? How does this fit in Hashem's bigger plan? When we had a challenge in the office and we were concerned, we didn't know exactly how to deal with it, he would say, what's the problem? We're doing Hashem's work. Let him do his part. Don't worry. And he didn't merely preach it. He meant it. And we all felt it. You know, we all knew Gershon was Lubavitcher Chussid, a real Chussid of the Rebbe. But he would never impose his beliefs on others. I'll give you an example. Jem printed a few years ago a pamphlet of an interview and correspondence with the Rebbe and Dr. Wilkes on the topic of children with special needs. Fascinating article, fascinating letter the Rebbe wrote to him, I think the Toshin Chops, years and years ago, before everything we know today. And they printed in a beautiful self-standing pamphlet. And I saw it, it could be Gershon gave it to me or somebody gave it to me. And I was really, it was a really nice thing. I called Gershon right away. We're going to order this for all our families. We're going to send it to them in the mail. Gershon was hesitant. He didn't want to. He felt that people are going to look at it, that he has his own agenda, and people are going to not take well to it. So he was very careful. But to certain individuals, myself included, he constantly demanded that we learn Chassidus. Constantly. Why? It's not because, as I said, he wanted to impose his things on us. He truly believed that it would help us become a better person. And he cared about us, Berachnius, the same way as he cared about us in Gashmius. Every Friday, every Erev Yontif, or before any Yom in the Pagri on the Chabad calendar, he would bring me copies of Mamura Masichas of the Rebbe to learn. The hardest thing was, and staff witnessed it almost every week, Monday morning when I came to the office, he would grill me. So, did you learn the Mama? Could you repeat it to me? And I have to admit, not always did I get to it, not always did I get to finish it. It really bothered him. It really, and he used to tell me, David, what's going to be? You need to start learning Chassidus. It was because he cared. It was not because he was looking to spread anything. He really cared. You know, Gershon was busy doing chesed all day. But he wasn't just answering the phone and answering people's questions because he was there in the position and he had the information and he had to. And okay, he did his job. He answered the questions. He hooked them up to whatever things were available in that situation. And that was it. He was always looking to be creative. and how to help people in different ways. There was a master, there was once a Litvish Bacher that was standing in Manhattan on the Erev Yontif. He was looking to get to Monsey. And he arrived there and he realized he just missed the bus. Some Satmar Chos had passed and saw this guy standing there Erev Yontif in the afternoon, and he looked lost. He pulled down his window and he asked him, what's the matter? So the guy told him, I need to get to Monsey. I have no idea how. Can you help me? The guy tells him, listen here, I know in Williamsburg, there's a later bus. Hop into my car, I'll drive you to Williamsburg and you catch the bus. If you won't make it, for whatever reason we won't make it, you'll come to me for Yontif. What's the big deal? So he didn't have an option. He jumped into the car and off they went to Williamsburg. They arrived to the bus stop. So the guy realizes that they're on time. They actually still had a few minutes left before the bus came. So he dropped them off. A few minutes later, the guy comes back with a whole bag of mazonas and cold drinks. Side of the day, the guy should have what to eat on the way. No, he had a hard afternoon. Moedige Chesed. If you think about it, what exactly happened here? It was Erev Yontif. The guy was driving down Manhattan. Nobody asked him to stop. He did not let the guy pull him over and ask him, please take me. He saw a face. It was Erev Yontif. I'm sure the guy was busy. He could have, okay, I didn't see him. The guy did not stop me. I didn't see him. But no, the guy felt, okay, he's a Jew. This guy's, I'm going to help him. He took him into his car. Okay, you need to get to Williamsburg to catch the bus. Come, I'll take you. So again, it's Erev Yontif. I'm sure the guy had a million things to do. He could have thought to himself, okay, let me just get there fast. Let me get rid of my chesed. I did it. I'll even feel good about it. I did the chesed. And that's it. Let me get on with my life. No, that's not what happened. He dropped him off. And then he still came back to be mashal in the mitzvah. He still brought him food for the way. That was Gershon Sabol. It was not a chesed that we did what we had to. We plugged in a certain program to help the family. When he came to us with a problem, with a situation, and he came to us a day later, Nee, what did you do about it? So I used to tell him, we did this, we did that. Is that the best we can do? There isn't anything else we can do for this family? Why don't you think out of the box? Maybe there are other options. He's always demanding more and more. He did not look at it, okay, we accomplished, we can move on. There was never that sense of accomplishing. And he didn't only demand that from us. He demanded that from himself as well. We all know Gershon went to sleep very early. In the office, after 10 o'clock, we knew, come hell or high water, we cannot call him. It's over. The day is over. But he never shut his phone. His phone was on. And there were people that, I guess, took advantage of it. I remember one morning walking into the office and I see, something is not okay. I said, Gershon, what's going on? So, don't ask. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, you're up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I got an email from you at 3:30 in the morning already. So that means you did not sleep. What happened? So he tells me that this family called him at 12 o'clock, midnight, with a problem. And he was on the phone with them for 2 hours. I said, I don't understand, Gershon. You couldn't have let the call go to voicemail. They'll leave a message. You call them back in the morning. When you're in the office, you're able to give them time. You call them back. Why was it necessary for you to get out of bed? And we knew it wasn't time that he went to sleep. He had a side ayom. There was no, you could not change that. So he tells me, I don't understand of it. This family needs help at 12 o'clock in the morning. What am I going to tell them? Wait till tomorrow to help you? He needs the help now. There was no such a thing. Okay, I'm going to tell him, come back in a day. He called me now. He's desperate now. I will help him now. I would like to finish with the story of the Chofetz Chaim. Someone once came to the Chofetz Chaim for bracha. Chofetz Chaim asked him, what do you do for Parnusa? So he told him he sells boots to the Red Army, to the Russian army. So the Chofetz Chaim asked him, tell me, I know the Russian army is not easy to deal with. I'm sure they give you a hard time before they pay you. What do you do? So the guy tells him, yeah, you're right. They give me a very hard time. Every shipment I send, they give me problems. The size is not good. The quality is not good. And the color is not good. And this and that. So the Chofetz Chaim, so what do you do? So he was a little bit embarrassed. So he told the Chofetz Chaim, he gives kabar. Kabar in Russian means bribery. He greases the wheels to the people that need it. And from there, everything goes smooth. There's no problem. Chofetz Chaim said, we come up to Shemaim after 120. We get before the Beis Shamala. And they start inspecting our merchandise. They start inspecting what we come up with. They inspect our Torah, our tefillah, everything we do. And they find problems. This was not good. This davening was not good. There's a problem. Chofetz Chaim said, Chesed is kabar. Chesed is bribery. That Hashem allows himself to be bribed in Beis Shamala with doing chesed. Gershon has a lot of kabar. He has a lot of chesed. I'm sure he's sitting in Eden right now. And Hashem should help. He should be a Milas Yosher for all of us. Thank you.
Amen. David, thank you very, very, very much. I don't know how it happened that the first public speech you made is already to hundreds and hundreds of people. You're already on the levels of my uncles. They've been talking for 40 years. Your first speech, you got a few hundred people. You didn't even stutter on one word. So next time someone asks you, just jump. You did good. The next person that was willing to speak is a dear friend of mine, but also a dear friend of my parents. And I should tell you, Ellie Drew, thank you and your wife for being there for us, for my mother. Over the last few hard weeks, but even before that, in the good times, a man who has probably said more l'chaim with my father than anybody else in the neighborhood, by choice or not by choice, Eli Drew.
Thank you, Levi. Funny, I was preparing for this, and I texted a couple of my friends here in Muncie who are also, friends with Gershon, and I said, "Do you have anything that would be particularly relevant or particularly inspiring about Gershon that I could share?" And the first one of them texted me back immediately, "None of your business." And to everyone who knew Gershon, they knew that was it was quintessential Gershon. So, as Rabbi Minkowitz pointed out, and many people said, I wrote this down even before he spoke, one of the titles that everyone keeps using about Gershon is that he was a chassid. And one of the things we do as chassidim is we follow the way of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe used to say when we're speaking about someone who passed on, and nifter that we have to take a lesson from the nifter, from his life, and use it to help us grow. And a lot of the things I already said tonight were things I wrote down, things I wanted to point out about Gershon. Some of it may be repetitive, but I want to share it from my perspective. One of the things that really stuck out to me was Gershon's Avos Yisrael. When I was here not too long, I was here a couple of years, I was already pretty friendly with Gershon. A family moved to Muncie, someone I knew, and Gershon didn't really know them at all. But the father had lost his job soon thereafter, and he didn't have parnasa, and it was hard on the family financially, emotionally. I'm walking home from shul one Shabbos afternoon, and Gershon turns to me and says, "Eli, we need to find this guy a job." So I didn't even know he knew him, but he says, "We got to find him a job." So, okay, we'll start working. He says, no, we have to find him a job. Shabbos was out, and for the next few weeks, every time I saw Gershon, we spoke. He'd either give me a lead I could share with him, ask me for an update, what's going on. Until he was settled with the job, the matter didn't rest. He kept reminding me, he kept speaking to me, we have to help this person. And that was one example. Gershon also was loved by everybody. If you look at all the different types of people he impacted and touched, as he felt it was his mission to be in Tzemach Tzedek for the Kiddush Club, always to share a vart, to say something. There's some people came to shul just for the Kiddush Club, but they loved Gershon. Gershon was someone who they appreciated. They would listen when he had to say his Dvar Torah. The people who want to learn the Maimer from the Var Malchus, Gershon want to ask you to learn the Maimer. Did you want to learn the Sicha? You can speak to him in learning. If you had just general opinions about the community, opinions about how Meister should run, you wanted to talk with Gershon, he talked with you, even when he vociferously disagreed. There are many, many more examples. But Gershon was someone who was opinionated. He could disagree. He had his beliefs. He had his standards, his expectations. But none of that got in the way of his Avos Yisrael. No matter who you were, he would speak with you. He would be your confidant, your friend, your sounding board. What was important to him, what he believed, did not stop him from having an Avos Yisrael and having an appreciation and help for somebody else. But for me, that even was the most impactful part of Gershon's Ahavas Yisrael. This is something Rabbi Sternhell had spoken about also. There's a Gemara in Ksubis, where the Gemara talks about how you're supposed to take care of an ani, how much you have to give him. And the Gemara says, you have to give him enough to make up for what he's lacking. You don't have to make him rich, but you have to make him what he's lacking. But what does it mean what he's lacking? The Gemara gives an example from Hillel Hazakin, that there was a rich man who had lost all his money, and he was used to having someone walk in front of his horse. And Hillel, the way he gave tzedakah was he made sure that this person, now that he was born with, but the lifestyle he was used to was no longer there. Hillel hired someone to walk in front of this man's horse. When Hillel couldn't find someone to pay to walk in front of the horse, Hillel Hazakin himself, the Nasi, the head of all of the Yidden, walked in front of this man's horse. This was the way Gershon lived his life with Ahavas Yisrael. At Yidei Chesed, when doing favors for other people, he had told me many times, it's not enough to do someone the favor. It's not enough that we help a family. Until they feel they've been helped, until feel like they've been made whole, you haven't done enough. Even if you've done what every person would expect you to do, even what you've done, where a normal person would say, you've done enough. That wasn't enough for Gershon. Until the person was comfortable, until the person felt he was made whole, you had to do more. You weren't done. There was one more example of this. So when I was here a couple of years, so we're sitting in Shul. Shavuos was a 3-day Yom Tif. It was afternoon. I think it was the first or second day of Yom Tif. And Gershon comes to me and says, Eli, let's go. Let's go to the Yidei Chesed house around the corner and visit the people there. It's a 3-day Yom Tif. No one's coming to visit them. They're working hard. Let's go bring in some Simchas Yom Tif, say hello. So we walked over. We spent about a half an hour, 40 minutes. We were walking around, speaking with the children, speaking to the staff, saying hello, seeing how everyone's doing. And then we left. The next day, I said to Gershon, again, to Mincha Ma'ariv, Gershon, we're going again? He told me, no. So I asked him, why not? He said, well, I'm their boss. If I come there once to visit them and say hello, good Yom Tif, make them feel good, so I can help them. But if I start coming too often, they're going to feel I'm pressuring them, I'm looking at them, I don't trust them. I have to make sure that I'm not on top of them like that. His Ahavas Yisrael, he had the sensitivity, not just to see what they need to be visited, but also know not to visit, not to be too much overbearing as a boss. As David Sternhell mentioned, he said he was the perfect boss. He knew how to be a mentor, a friend, and be a boss at the same time. And I saw that with Gershon. In the Chitas, we're going to read learn for tomorrow, the day of the Shloshim. There's a pasuk that says, "Ushmartim es chukoisai v'esmishpatai asher yasser oisim ha'adam v'chai b'hem ani Hashem." You should guard the chukim, the shpatim, which the person should do, and you should live with them, because I am Hashem. Gershon was someone that he was shmartim es chukim as mitzvahs. He watched the mitzvahs, he kept the mitzvahs, he was medactic. But v'chai b'hem, he lived with them. It wasn't enough just to do it by rote, or to do it, or to learn a sikha, to see something. There was various members of the community, as we're speaking about Gershon and recollecting our favorite times with him. More than one person mentioned to us that we really enjoyed walking home from Shul Shabbos afternoon. Speak with Gershon after a couple of chayims or walking home. And inevitably in these walks, someone would say a vart, someone share a story. And Gershon's response was always, that's nice. But how did that make you a better yid? How did that make you a better chassid? How did that make you a better father, a better husband? It wasn't enough that you had a good vart and it was nice. It had to change you. It had to do something for you to make you a better yid. And that's who Gershon was. V'chai b'hem, he lived with them. A vart he lived with. Every Shabbos. Eliezer, did you learn the Sichen and Varmachas this week? Did you learn the Maimer? He kocht in the Maimer every week. Many times I told him, no, I'm learning something else. But tell me, what does it say? It said this, it said that. But look, we can learn, we can do something. This is what Gershon had. He put his heart into it. He lived at the mitzvahs. I want to finish off with one point above all this personally. Gershon was a friend. He was someone old enough to be my father. He had much more life experience than me and much more world experience. He never made me feel like I was anything other than a peer and an equal. He treated me always like a friend, and I felt him like a friend. He should be a Milat Yosef for the whole family. We should be very soon. The good mitzvahs v'ashlema v'kitzan sheikh niafar v'hu bereisham. Everyone should, we should very soon have Gershon together with us dancing to greet Mashiach.
Amen. Thank you, Ellie. And only because I got to carry on and I can't cry right now. I don't know if everybody picked up on that, but my father must have rubbed off on you because I don't know if everybody got that. Ellie Drew already did tomorrow's chitas. The next speaker is, again, a friend of my father, who'll speak, a good friend of ours, a good friend of my wife and I, and another neighbor from my father's neighborhood. He's the director, together with his wife, of the Hillel of Rockland Community College, Rabbi Dov Oliver.
Thank you, Levi. Eliezer does some beautiful reflections. I'm glad to have the opportunity to share a few words, but very sad. Like Kowalski said, I can't believe that we could say all the Shalom after Gershon, and throughout the walks. We like to walk a lot around our neighborhood. And Rabbi Hecht, you mentioned Shochen Tov, that's what he was for 13 years, an exceptional neighbor. And it's hard to think that I won't see him shul and walking around and everything like that, because he just took a special, I think, care and interest in me. But as I've been speaking with Levi over the last month and hearing all these different things that have been shared, it's clear that a lot of people felt like that. And actually, Rabbi Hecht, I was so impressed and proud of myself that I came up with this beautiful thing I was going to say, that Gershon was this tremendous blend of chesed and gvura, which led to Tiferes. I was all good to go, and that was literally what you opened with. But I think that's just testament to how it was a tremendous blend. I'm going to just actually read what I wrote. I think it was probably within half an hour after finding out, that Gershon had passed away. And there was my, I guess, knee-jerk reaction and my emotions on the spot. So I'm going to read it and then sort of circle back to it. In tribute to our friend and neighbor, I must share what came to me on the spot. He was a giant of kindness and menschlichkeit. He was a true chassid, always had a word in a story. He worked on himself. He saw things in a deep way and still held back when he could have easily criticized others. For this, he developed in himself humility and flexibility. A couple of years ago, we were discussing someone's tough plight that was their own doing. And he said to me, Dov, I've learned we have to mellow. If we don't mellow, we get yellow. I remember exactly. If you're yellow, you get old and wrinkly. That's exactly what I know who comes to me who it was about. And he just had that. He was, don't look up schluss on the guy. And he said, if you don't mellow, you get yellow. He brought dignity to all the young, challenged people in the centers he ran and was mechaber the workers there. And I'll just interject that, in our work at the college, we had a number, and we still have a number of people who are taking their degrees, but also our residents at Yidei Chesed. And Gershon always took a special interest and asked me, and he would tell me things like, don't have Rahmanas on him, push him, and don't let him think that you think that he's any less or something. He always was giving me eitzes about how to interact. And also we've had many, and currently people from our students that work at Yidei Chesed, and it was in general, I'm getting distracted, but the whole Yidei Chesed thing was a visionary approach that Gershon had, and an incredible shlichus. Okay, everyone already knows that. Okay, it was his very own hands, Yidei Chesed, hands of kindness. It was a shlichus to Hashem's kinder done with pride and honor. His chusam in helping those special neshamas is incredible. He was no nonsense, but plenty of kindness and patience. He was an example of Emma Ma'at V'aseh Habe. He loved his family, was so proud of him. He really was a great example in so many ways. And an old timer with a young spirit, like Eliezer just said, I felt the same way, that he was old enough to be my father, but we could just shoot the breeze about this and about that, and just kibbutz and shtech. And that was a very unique quality. The news hit my WhatsApp screen and most of ours at 6:13 of Gershon's passing. How appropriate. He was a Torah Yid par excellence. Gershon, make a ruckus up there. We know you will. Anyway, that's what I wrote immediately. Some personal reflections. I think Gershon took it on himself to be an unofficial mashpia to me. And I remember very specifically coming into Beis Menachem, our shul here in our neighborhood. And I came in, I don't know what was going on that day. Either I was minus a kapata, minus a hat, minus a gartel, something. And he said to me, Dov, you have a mashpia? And I said to him, yeah, I have a mashpia. I said, why do you ask? He said, no. I just need to know because I know you have to be mashpia on a lot of other people. So, I just want to make sure that you have mashpia because you are an incredible mashpia. And in that, in that little thing, that was the gvura and the chesed at work. He was giving me a little shtach, like, no, where's the kapata? But at the same time, he was makir, you're doing important stuff. He managed to merge it in there together. And as was referenced, this was also what was so loved about him with the Kiddush Club and some tzedek. And, to hear a few of them that I've spoken to since the last month, it took a special person to be able to enter that space and be welcomed in like one of the boys, and yet abyssal hecha, and be able to bring in. And that was Gershon quality. And I think that it comes back to what Rabbi Sternhol said, that he was right. He was just very right about most things. When I would speak with him also on different walks around our neighborhood, from shul, he got it. He was an exceptionally clever, astute individual. I mean, as we really all know. And like I said, I felt he took a personal interest when he would ask me about different, what's going on at the college, do another pu'ula. And then when I would come back from my many birthright trips, which one of them I was zeichet to have Shmuley Sabol along on the trip. And I'd bench Goimel, who knows back from the trip, come and ask me about the trip. And then I think, so as along the lines of what somebody else said, maybe just Eliezer now, then he would say, okay, so you had a good trip. So what are you going to do? You're going to come and bring about it and tell miracle stories about how you changed somebody's trip. Now you got to change their life. This was maybe not the exact words, but this was the sentiment. He would always give me an extra push, an extra encouragement. And I think the way that I would word it is that he had complementary expectations. Sometimes people have expectations. You're like, I don't need your expectations, but his expectations came along with the compliment he was giving you, that he felt that you could do more, etc. I will also say that one of the first times I met him, someone pointed out to me that he was the person, as we've all spoken about the last few weeks, who wrote the famous "It Happened Yom Kippur" song. And growing up in Melbourne, Australia, we would sit there in camp, and the Shloshim would come and would sing that song and everything like that. And I was like, he's the guy. And I walked over to him, and I said to him, we sang that song. And he says to me, I can't remember the guy. It was just something to the fact, big deal. Okay, I wrote a song. No, that's it. That's all you came over to say. Like, he didn't take credit. Hundreds of thousands of kids sing this song in camps and at Shabbos tables. Interesting timing that we're doing this as Yom HaZikaron today. And that song really in many ways brought like the Israeli narrative, but with the Rebbe's perspective type of thing for us. Anyway, I think I'm rambling despite making all of these notes over here. I can't hardly read my own handwriting. Anyway, what I want to say is like this. My interactions with Gershon, I'm sure many others, carried a certain weight, because you could tell that he wanted you to succeed and to be your best self. And when he asked and when he inquired, he really cared. And he was really focused, and he knew how to listen. And if we can take something away, I'm speaking to myself, the ability to listen and with concentration, so that the person doesn't just think you're waiting for your turn to speak, but that you really want to hear what he has to say, and to care. The Avos Yisrael that was mentioned, and particularly I had a couple sort of health things, and he cared very much. He was encouraging me to watch my diet and to exercise, and you check in with me. And at one point I shared with him and some people, how much on the scales, how much I weighed, and I had a goal to lose weight, and that was it. He never let me forget that. He would always say, no, so how's it going? So he just cared like that. And I also found that he found very clever ways. So for the 5 years I was the gabbai in our shul, and the gabbai has to find who to daven. And you know, if you're doing your job half decently, you send up somebody good. And Gershon was a beautiful bar tefillah, and I would like to get him to daven when I could, but sometimes I would come and he'd say, "Yeah, you know, not me, not me." And then he'd say, "Okay, so tell me something. I'm going to daven." I should remember this very specifically. I mean, it was on a yom tov. I'm going to daven. You're going to do another pu'ula at the college? What? No wonder you were going to do already. You're just going to send me a picture and you tell me this. Another one. I completely lost my whole train of thoughts over here. But just give me 1 second over here. Okay, I'm going to finish up. I just want to say that I don't think it was mentioned, but you know, I was able to see different times that Gershon just was so proud of his kids, loved his kids and his Einaklach, and different interactions. And I know all the Sabol kids, some more, some less. And he would talk to me with a certain fire in his voice about his kids and about how far they're going to go. Not necessarily how much he loved them. That would be too mushy for Gershon. But he would say, "This kid." And I remember even there was, you know, in one of our little fundraising shticks that a lot of people do is you dedicate a day in the calendar for a birthday or a yard site, and you send out the calendar, you know, before Tishrei. And he would always dedicate some days to his kids and Einaklach and this and that. And he would talk about them. Or I went there for Shabbos to Levi and Chaya, and I told him after, I said, "Oh, you know, I spent a Shabbos there." He says, "Oh, I'm jealous of you," or something. And he tells me, "That Aaron Dove, he's going to go places. That Gabi, that kid, nothing's going to stop him." And you know, but at the same time, like I said in what I read out, you know, Gershon knew the score. He saw things in a deep way. And if he didn't work on himself to be kind, he could have very easily taken a situation and a person and really pointed out exactly what's what. But that was part of his working on himself, which I saw. And actually I saw over the years that I was here, different situations we had in the shul. Maybe he was a little bit more Gurdik, but in the end, he really was a person that worked on himself. And just a tremendous dogmachai for all of us. And I'll just say that he had tremendous vision. And actually, I shtickle dropped the ball. It was about a year ago, I was speaking with him and we had a very big pu'ula. And he asked me about it, and I told him how a certain lady in her mid-60s or early 60s showed up, and she'd had almost no Jewish interactions of a positive nature in her whole life for different reasons. And how she came to this and this, to the event. And then I mentioned to him that the event she came with 2 dogs who are therapy dogs, and you know, how beautiful they are and this and that, and how it just came up in the conversation. It was Lag BaOmer, actually, the event. And then he said to me, "They're therapy dogs." He said, "Maybe we should get them involved in the chesed, but you know, they have a whole animal room there for the kids to pet and everything." And he said, "In this way, it'll achieve 2 things at once. Then it was in that she'll get closer, she'll be exposed to Yiddishkeit and now Israel into the community because she's very alienated, and the kids will enjoy it." And I didn't follow up on that, so Mr. Shem, I'm going to. I don't know how long I've been rambling, but I'm done. And I just want to wish Mrs. Sabol and, you know, all of the Sabol children that, as absolutely horrible and sad as this is, I'm sure that over the last month, and I know Levi shared with me, you know, hearing so many things about who Gershon was, and he was a humble guy and he didn't want to take credit for anything, of course, but there's, you know, so much to learn, and you can all be proud of him, and he should only look down from above and be very, very proud of you. And his neshama should have an aliyah, and he definitely could make a case up there. So I hope he's pouring a few Crown Royals with the Eibishter. I don't know if that's how it works, but making a real case for all this to be over. So shkoyach Levi.
Thank you, Dov. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The last speaker, the last official speaker, I should say, is my uncle Shimon, Rabbi Shimon Hecht, member of the executive of the NCFJE. Uncle Shimon.
Thank you, Levi. So when I shared with some of my children that I asked to speak last, they said, "You sure you want to do that? You know, last time you said everything Levi was going to say, and then, Levi not what to say." So I said, that's exactly what I want to happen. And that's exactly what did happen. Baruch Hashem, everyone said, I didn't exactly write down my notes, but I share with everyone their thoughts and their memories and feelings about Gershon. But I just want to make a little connection with Gershon's name and everything that was spoken tonight. The Alter Rebbe explains in a Maimon L'Kutei Torah that the name Gershon could be split into three, and that is Gorash, Vav, and Langanon. And he explains that Gerash is to chase away the Chitzayim, to do away with any outside forces, evil forces, negative forces, things which shouldn't exist in one's life. And he said, how do you do it? He says, Al Yidei Rav Chesed. So over there, right in the words of the Alter Rebbe, you have Gershon's avodah was Yidei Chesed, the vav of his name, which brought down the Rav Chesed, the great Racham Rabbim, that he brought into the world through the Mosid that Gershon ran for so many years. And the bottom line was, it came into the Nun. A Nun represents the idea that it goes from the top all the way till the bottom. Because Gershon, as mentioned so many times tonight, was a man of action. And you could have many good ideas, but if you didn't bring it down to Meister B'Poel, then all your great anachas, all your good ideas weren't really worth much. So this is the life that he truly lived up to his namesake, where, again, all the things that were mentioned, I don't have to go repeat, all the things that were mentioned tonight, which correspond with the idea of getting rid of evil, in the deprogramming, whatever it may be. I mentioned last time about this animate, not to talk Lashon Hara, whatever it may be. He got rid of that, and he did it through the Chesed. He was Mamsheh from Rav Chesed into this world, and it truly had its impact to bring it into a day-to-day action. So maybe every one of us has to look a bit deeper into our names and see what our name, who we are supposed to be, and are we living up to our potential? Are we living up to our namesake? And perhaps, as mentioned earlier, we don't have to be Gershon. God doesn't want and expect of us to be Gershon. God wants us to be who we're supposed to be, as the famous story of Rabbi Zusha. And if every one of us walk away from tonight saying that I'm going to dedicate my life to become who I'm supposed to be, to do what I'm supposed to do, I think this will be a great source for Gershon's memory. And I want to conclude with a little story, which I wasn't sure if I should say it tonight or not. But then she, at the beginning, started off saying, the brothers fight. So I said, great, Shia, thank you very much. Now I can tell the story. So many, many years ago, go back at least 40 years ago, maybe probably at least 45 years ago, we were up in Camp Amona. It was probably before camp started or was camp ended. I was sitting around and we had to do something. And no one wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden, I jumped up to do it and Gershon jumped up to do it. We had to take a van to go to where we had to do it. And I made it to the driver's seat first. And then Gershon came in and said, you don't want to do it. Why are you here? I don't remember all the details, but he beat me up. She said before he saw Gershon's Gvura, I felt Gershon's Gvura. And not only did he beat me up physically, but he beat me up emotionally as well. Because with every punch he gave me, he told me things that I didn't want to hear. And he really, till today, I can't say I still feel the punches that he gave me. I don't feel the punches because it wasn't that hard. But as brothers, yeah, we fought. but that fight remained with me and will remain with me to the end of my life. Many times when certain things happen in my life and I want to react in a certain way and I'm reminded of that story, I stopped that there because I told myself one thing. I said, Shimon, after he's punched me and screaming at me, don't answer him. Except everything he says, you asked for it, you got it. So I don't know who was right and who was wrong. Gershon, in case you were wrong, I want to tell you, I'm Michael. In case most probably I was wrong, I asked you for Machil. And may Hashem bless us that very speedily we should be able to be all united together. Shamas Begufim here in this physical world, together with our Rebbe. We'll go together to build the third Beis Hamikdash, and we will bring the real tachlis of why the world was created into action, was the life of Gershon, what Gershon lived. May his memory be a blessing for all of us and an inspiration for every single one of us.
Amen. L'chaim, Uncle Shia. Thank you, Uncle Shimon. Thank you very much.
One more thing. I forgot to tell you that when Gershon, one point, when Gershon came to my house one Shabbos for Simcha, I don't know, you guys are talking about Crown Royal, but he drank Cardu. I think I was pronouncing it correct. It was a square bottle, and he told me it's really good mashka. I must have bought it for the Simcha. And ever since then, I went back and I bought like a case of it. And then I think I couldn't get it anymore, so I've stopped drinking it in my house. So I don't know about Crown Royal, but he's probably drinking Cardu, not even more Crown Royal. L'chaim, everyone.
L'chaim, Uncle Shimon. I want to tell you something, by the way. You had a huge distinction because I sat with my father at many a Kedushim and Simchas with some of the finest whiskeys on the table. And if there was no Crown Royal, he said, not for me. And he wouldn't touch anything. So you have a massive distinction there. In keeping with the wisdoms that's much wiser people told me, we'll cut the program now before it runs its course. That ends the official program. However, considering how many people are still on here, I just want to open up the floor. If there's anybody that I didn't reach out to that is inspired perhaps to say a few words, just text or message or wave and we can open it up. And if there's no one else, we'll just we'll end the program with that because it is my father's bedtime very, very shortly. Actually, there's one other thing that I want to say, and I'll end with that. Give a few people some time if they do want to speak. Two things I want to say. There is one more person that just piped up that they want to speak. I'm very, very proud of them. And by the way, my father is very proud of you. Shimon, could you open Shuli Weiser's mic, please? Shuli Weiser, the director of Yaldei Shluchei Rabbi. I guess while everybody was speaking over the last hour, he said a few l'chaims. So, Shim, did you find him?
L'chaim.
There we go.
I'll just correct you. Not that I want to speak, but I think that's what Gershon would have wanted me to do, especially that he put me in charge of Yaldei, and years ago, he put me in charge not only of the myself, the office, the staff, which I work together with my partner David Shor, and co-director, but I guess I represent here the oldie Shloshim that he spoke to even before Yaldei was created. And I know, David, you mentioned that he sometimes was up 2 o'clock at night. I'll take some of the blame of that because sometimes I know Shluchim from around the world would call him, and the time zones are different. It's not New York 9 to 5. Time zones are very different. So I am not going to speak long because I know Gershon was a 90-second guy. I know Gershon on his table in his office had bought himself a sand clock that he would put down, correct? He bought a sand clock to put down people, so listen, you have exactly until it runs out. After that, I'm done. So anyways, I'm going to mamish speak. Everything that had to be said, I think was said. All the milas of Gershon were brought down already. I saw actually today somewhere that when you speak about a person that has passed, which is, by the way, something very hard for me to say, being that Gershon went from being a boss and a mentor to being a friend, and I even ventured to say that he was like a secondary father figure to at least to myself, and I know to many other people. So what I to be very, very short, there was a story that I'm reminded many years ago. Yaldi had I never said the story anywhere in public because it involves some individuals, and tonight I asked them permission to share the story. So there was some individuals that volunteered for the Mossad in its very beginning. They volunteered to do administrative work. It was a lot of administrative work. And they worked for us for a while, volunteered for us for a little while. And then one day I got an email that that's it, I can't do it anymore for various reasons. I didn't know then exactly what the reasons were, but I accepted it and went on. A month later, I was told, okay, they had a baby, Mazel Tov, and they let me know that unfortunately the baby is very, very sick. And the baby did not make it. And I was a youngster then, and I was very upset, distraught about this, and I couldn't understand how a person that gave his or her time to a moisa that helps Shloshim with children with special needs and children that have sicknesses and illnesses, how can the Eibishter repay such a thing to a person that does that, and all without pay, without fanfare? It wasn't a job that involved helping out the Shluchim directly. It was work in the office, paperwork, data, and whatever not. And I called. Who do I call in such a when I have such questions? Picked up the phone, called Gershon Sabol. Now let me tell you, I know everyone said about it's none of your business, but I found that Gershon Sabol, none of your business, was usually between 9 to 5. He was such a punctual worker that between 9 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you cannot talk to him about anything else but straightforward business. There's nothing else you can talk to him about. He told me many times, Charlie, call me before 9 o'clock. I get into the office. I don't know what time he told me then, usually whatever time. Call me before, call me after 5 when it quiets down and we can sit and talk. After 9 and 5, I was able to have a talk with him and to ask him how he's doing, and he would respond to me and he would tell me this and that and the other. But the 9 to 5, he none of your business. So I called him and I asked him, Gershon, tell me, how do I process this situation? I have this taina against the how does he do such a thing? They told me very simple. He had an ability to change a mindset around. One of his many abilities to change a mindset around. And I carried his wise advice until today, and I applied it many times. He told me, you have to think about it in a total different view. Think about it that the Rebbeinu Shalom, for some reason, had already decided that this family needed to have a child that would not make it, a child that would be very sick for a couple of weeks. And now the Rebbeinu Shalom, because he is a teva, toiv lahetiv, he's a guta, and he wants to make sure people don't suffer too much, he installed this person into a moised like Yalda Shluchadeva, so that this person, with the time, a year or two, I don't know how long it was the time they volunteered, they will hear about things, they will get to know about things, they will see certain things in the office, and that will actually help them for themselves to process such a situation. And so that was like it turned my whole view around. And many times when I saw something bad happen, something was really bad, that was the advice I took from him. And that's what the Havachayit in the Libra was mentioned, where it says that you shouldn't, when you maspid someone, don't be maspid just his milas, also what you can learn of his milas, what you can apply to your own life. But this is something I took. This is something that I live with. And actually, I found out later that yes, that was, in some ways true, that because of Yalde, they actually reached out to Gershon. They spoke to Gershon for a very long time. Gershon gave them their ear, even though they were not part of Yidei Chesed. And Gershon was very brutally honest with them about not getting involved with Yidei Chesed, because Yidei Chesed is not going to be an option for them, etc., etc. But in any case, this is what I took. This is something I live with until today. And only thing I can say that it should be a Melitz Yosef for the family. And we at Yaldi are very committed to continuing. The board has met and we are continuing to push forward and move forward with greater strength. I know this was his passion. Yalda was his passion. And we are committed to continue bigger and better than ever.
L'chaim Shali, thank you. You did great, by the way.
L'chaim's worked, you know.
You see, he knew what he was talking about. I'll just end the program by saying the following: that first of all, if I had a nickel for every time I heard what I'm about to quote from my father, I'd be able to build a project by myself. But my father, every time he sat down, whether he was saying L'chaim during the week on Shabbos, whenever it was, he said that there always has to be a Yotze Poel for when you sit down. When two Jews, he always used to tell me, when two Jews sit, it has to benefit a third. And one of my father, not many people may know this, but my father always believed in succession, which he was planning for. He believed that people eventually, in certain cases, ran out their usefulness and it was time for them to bring in fresh blood. And he was planning his retirement within the next couple of years. And in talking with the people in his office, David Sternhill specifically, I decided, my father's pet project that he wanted to accomplish before he retired was building a respite home on a piece of property that the Yidei Chesed currently owns. And that's what he was going to do over the coming, over the next few years. In talking with my mother and family and with David specifically in Yidei Chesed, I decided that I am unfortunately going to have to be the one that pushes and helps complete that project. So, I guess stay tuned to this space because soon it's in the very, very early stages. My father had already started planning for it. Over the coming weeks, we're going to gather more information and, start putting it out there. So anybody that wants to get involved can do so. Baruch Van Shimon, can you find somebody called Baruch Van Halen? By the way, at this point, I guess this will end the official. My father was not one for formality, so we'll end the official program here. Shimon, if you can please find a Baruch Van Halen. He would like to talk for a few minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I'm not much of a speaker, but listening to everybody tonight, I just wanted to say a few words how I connected with your father, Rabbi Gershon. I was lucky enough to work for him for Yidei Chesed. I'm still working for Yidei Chesed, but I was lucky enough to work under your father for the last 8 years or so. It's difficult to just put together in a few minutes, like what he meant for me, I think for all of us. But since I started, I knew him a little bit before working for Yidei Chesed. He actually pretty much like forced me to work for Yidei Chesed. I don't know if he forced me to work for Yidei Chesed, but he was always pushing me when he saw me in shul. I'm a quiet person. He's like out of the spotlight of a person. I never really knew what he did, but he used to come over to me time after time. And then I ended up working for Yidei Chesed, which is, just a great privilege, especially on your father, Reb Gershon. It's difficult to describe what, he was like what other people have said. He was like a father figure to me, to a lot of people. He was a boss, but I never saw him as a boss the way he interacted with me and with everybody else. The way his door was always open whenever I used to come in our headquarters, so we call it. I can't remember his door ever being closed. He always used to come over to you, even sometimes when you were didn't want to bother him because maybe he was too busy, always used to come over to you and ask you for things that you yourself weren't even aware of, that were maybe on your mind, or that you were struggling with, things like that. So just a very quick story, or like my connection with him, and also with all the people at Yidei Chesed. I have a special needs brother, and I work for Yidei Chesed. I mean, I try to, I feel it's one and the same. But the way your father always, not just with the people that worked for him and the parents, but the people themselves, how he treated them and how he cared for them, it just so inspiring for me. And my just on a personal note, my chizuk that I used to get once a year from your father was, I used to go over to him on Purim to visit him, have a l'chaim with him. And those few minutes, sometimes it was 5, sometimes it was 10, sometimes it was half an hour. Those few minutes, and maybe that one l'chaim, that second l'chaim, third l'chaim, really carried me through the whole year to the next Purim. Just his support and his wisdom and his vision. This year, I texted your father because my daughter also always loved to come with me every year. She always begged me, "Can I come with you to your bus?" Somehow at the same time that he was speaking to me and speaking me chizuk, at the same time he was inspiring and connected to my 5, 6, 7-year-old daughter every year, year after year. She always wanted to come. And this year, so I texted him. I said, "Are you here for Purim?" He said he wasn't. And my daughter was very, very, very sad. And I told her, "We'll see him another time in a few weeks." And just don't know what to say. But I want to say a few words, how I felt, how he connected with me, how I connected with him. That's pretty much it. Don't know what else my train of thought has left me, but just
Baruch, don't think, just say l'chaim, Baruch.
Yeah, I should I have to find l'chaim, but it's
l'chaim.
Yeah,
Baruch, thank
l'chaim,
you very,
l'chaim.
very much. L'chaim, thank you very, very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I guess we'll close it out. Thank you very, very, very much to all of you that took the time to come out here. It means a tremendous amount to myself, my family, my mother, cousins. Thank you all again. And you'll be hearing from us soon with the launch of the new project. Thank you, everybody.